Hi, Ann Cornick from Paintnporcelain. I'm here to teach beginners how to get started in China painting and also to help recruit experienced painters to paint along with us. And I wanted to tell you that today we're going to be working on bisque ornaments. This is porcelain bisque. It is not greenware. It is not ceramic bisque. And those are really important distinctions because if you're a China painter and you want to use China paints, the porcelain bisque is what you want to use. I want to take a second. And first of all, if you don't keep up with us or you can't keep up with us as far as the information I'm giving you, I have all my notes in a study on paintnporcelain.com. Okay, so what is porcelain bisque? Porcelain bisque comes like this. It's an unglazed porcelain, and it has a matte finish. It's rough. Compared to the smooth porcelain that we're used to painting on, this has a texture to it. And like I said, it is not greenware and it is not ceramic bisque. They look like this, so you have to be careful when you're purchasing it. This has been fired. Now, it's a great way to introduce children and adults who have not painted with China paints before to the art of China painting. And I've done this with several friends in the past. And when I was working, people wanted to learn how to China paint. So I brought little bisque turkeys to work and everybody painted a turkey and I fired it and they still use it. So it was a good introduction for a lot of them. And for children, I have a few tips for you. First of all, you want to pick something that's really simple to paint. This is extremely simple. And so I wanted you to be able to see this as an example. Another one I have is a little teddy bear. You know, this is pretty simple to paint, and they can even leave the bow white if they want, or if they need help with the eyes, you can give them help with the eyes. With anybody who's learning to paint porcelain for the first time and you're starting out with them, and this would be a good Christmas project, or, you know, if you have the kids ahead of Christmas, you probably should have them wear aprons. You should cover the tablecloth. I give everybody a tile, and then I put the paint that they're going to use on this tile because people tend to use a lot more paint than they really need to. And if you let them get into your palette, it's going to be a mess. The other thing that I do with children is I have two brushes that I keep handy. With an adult, you can explain to them, you know, you go in and clean your brush with the mineral spirits and then you just lightly dip it into the oil. And they will get that. That's not a problem. And you can show them how to load their brush, you know, side load or full load. But when it comes to children, that's a little difficult depending on the age. So if you have two brushes available, you can load one with the color that they want and they can paint with it while you're loading the other with the color that they need. So if you're going to have adults paint, there are a couple of different items that you can paint that are for bisque ornaments for Christmas. One would be a little figurine. This is an example of that. Also the traditional Santa Claus figurine. Here's an example of Santa Claus. You can see that these are much more detailed. Even some of the flatter ornaments. This is one I did a couple of years ago. I haven't seen the mold since. It's hollow on the back, but this is a little Mrs. Claus. When you're choosing your bisque, this is a good example. I made a mistake of buying a lot of bisque from a lady that I believed would have, you know, excellent bisque, and I was wrong. A lot of the bisque, and this is an example of an ornament that I got. The ornament was rough, had a lot of lumps and bumps on the front that no matter, I used a sander, you know how you have your sanding sponge to sand off after you do your first or second fire. I used this, but it didn't really get rid of the lumps and bumps. And so I really couldn't paint anything on it because the paint would catch on those and just look terrible. Another thing that I found when I'm choosing my bisque is that there can be deformities. And in the case of an ornament like this, the back side was extremely concave. It almost touched the front side. I couldn't paint on that either. I couldn't get a nice looking ornament out of it. And the final thing I will tell you is you should buy a few ornaments from anybody that you haven't bought bisque ornaments from before. And just paint them. And if they fire well, you won't have any problems. That's terrific. But if you find that you have a lot of black dots or a lot of black lines on your piece, now my understanding is that that means that the slip was contaminated somehow. And those of you that pour porcelain bisque, you can correct me if this is not right, but I don't know, it could be moisture. I've heard that too. But either way, it ruins your piece, and you don't know it until after you painted it and you go to fire it, and that's when these black dots surface. So if you've taken a few pieces from this person and they all work out great, then, or if you have problems, tell them the problems that you've had, and perhaps they can correct them for you. But you don't buy a huge amount of porcelain bisque before you have a chance to really try a little bit of it. I'll put you down so you can see. Alrighty, and a lot of people say that the bisque, because it's textured, will wear on your brush. So I have an older set of brushes that I like to use. You don't have to worry about wrecking your really good brushes. I would suggest, though, that you do use brushes that maybe a brush that you don't care about if you're going to paint a lot of bisque, because it does take a toll. So you're going to make sure your brush is clean. You're going to mix your paints the way you always do. You're going to just, add, if I use, what do I use here? I use baby oil, and I mix it with that. And it works, or mineral oil, and it works really well. And you can use those paints to paint with. You're going to put a little bit of oil on your brush initially, and you're going to pick up your color. I'm going to use yellow brown number 2 here just to paint the base of this. And now notice as I'm painting, it's catching. It catches on this textured surface, and it's not dark enough. So I'm going to put more oil on my brush and try again. And put a little more paint on my brush and try again. And it's eventually you get the right combination. What you don't want to do is go so oily that it becomes glossy, because it's going to look terrible, especially on something like this. So I'm just very carefully going around the top. Here, I'll hold it so you can see a little better. And then I'm just pulling down. And this is a wood grained ornament. And so as I do this, the wood grain is taking over and giving it a real nice texture and making it look really cool. You want to paint a little dry, but you also want the paint to move. So you're going to have to come up with, paint a little bit and get an idea of what works for you. Now, because I'm going to put snow on the bottom of this around the rim down here where I'm working, right there, I'm going to leave that white. I don't need to paint that if it's going to have snow on it. And if I'm not perfectly even, you can see how a child could paint this. If you're not perfectly even, if you get up into the roof or something, that's fine too. Who cares, It's just an opportunity for them to see how to paint. Okay, so that gives you a pretty good idea of what I would do on this. Now, on this particular ornament, I'm not going to paint all the way around because it's pretty self-evident. You can see it's a very, very dry painting process. And here, let me add a little more over here. It doesn't look like much, does it? Okay, we'll add a little more right here. You can paint heavier than you think you can. By that I mean darker. I don't really mean using more paint, because even though you use more paint, you need to smooth it out on this, because otherwise it looks really choppy. But there you go, okay? So I see on your screen, it looks like one side's darker than the other, like this side's really dark, and it really isn't. Okay. Then you can do one of two things. You can either paint the roof just under and along the sides, or you can paint the whole roof with the top too. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. I have already painted an ornament here that I wanted you to see. Okay. So this is the little ornament I painted, but I did not paint the roof on this because I'm going to apply the snow to the roof. I'm done firing this piece. So I did one fire on this piece and it came out this dark and I'm happy with it. So now I'm going to be embellishing it. I'm going to go outside, get a little stick that fits in here and break it off. And I'm going to eventually glue my little bird on there so that he's really cute. But I'm going to have him sitting on the stick, probably more this way. And then I'm going to apply the snow to the roof. And I found that Snow-Tex works about the best. This is deco art. Most of this stuff that I use is deco art. I kind of like it. With Snow-Tex, it really looks like snow. I don't know if you, here, can you see it in there? And all you do is you go in and get a glop. You can apply it either with a knife like this, or you could brush it on. I find that the knife works the best. And you just apply it like you're icing a cake. You want it to be somewhat thick. You don't want it to be too thin because you want to put a little sparkle on it and a little sprinkle on it. And I would also suggest that you make sure you get to the edges. And you just sort of, it's just like icing a cake. Go around to the edges, go up here, and just keep applying it, keep smashing it down until it sticks the way you want it to. Then on the bottom half, now up here before it dries, let me go back to the top here. Before it dries, take a look at it. Does it have the look you want? And then I'm going to take, and I have a piece of paper here. You always need to have a piece of paper handy. Oopsie. If you're going to use glitter. But I find that if you put glitter on while it's still wet, it will give you a much nicer outcome. And I have here a Flora Craft Diamond Dust, and it's really sparkly. Can you see how sparkly it is? And I also have another one that I've used for a long time. It's actually tape shut because I don't like it to accidentally fall over. And it has a shaker top, which is really nice. And it's just called glitter. And I just sprinkle it on, tap it off. Always do it over paper because you can reuse the glitter that comes down. You don't need to. And see how nice that looks? Can you see the glitter? Let me turn up my lights for a minute. You'll be able to see the glitter, I think. Can you see the glitter? Okay. Anyway, it's there you go. There you can see it a little better. And it's really nice. And your finished product will look more like this. Now, these little things on the top, if you don't have enough of them, and you'll notice that this particular birdhouse does not, and I probably should have determined where that was. And you can kind of feel around a little bit to make sure that you get where the hole is. Yep, I'm in it there. There's the hole, okay? Make sure you make your hole in the top. I guess that's very important. What you can do is, if you don't have that little hook on top, you can go to the secondhand store. I always am going to a thrift store. And you can buy ornaments. They're not very expensive. Usually it's $1 a box or something. You can pick the sizes that you want, and you can just take off the little cap that's there, like this, and then just poke. There, it's got an ornament on it. Just poke this little, right in the top here. And I would do it after it dries, but you can put it right in the hole, and that way you'll be able to hang your ornament. You can, the nice thing about going to a thrift store is you can determine what sizes you need. They have large, they have small. Like I said, it's $1 for a box of, like, 6 ornaments, 12 ornaments, depends what you want. You can get silver, you can get gold. So it's a nice way to, an inexpensive way to go ahead and get the toppers that you need. That's my little birdhouse. That's the one that I would have the kids do. It's a very simple one. And I don't think there's much more you can tell a person about that. Make sure you seal everything up well, though, when you're done. The other thing you can use if you want to add a little snow at the base, somebody told me about this Deco Art snow writer. I've tried it. I'm not a fan, but she swears by it, so you may want to try it. I think I did use it on this, right around the base here. I got the little bit of snow around the base. So it might be something to try, but I didn't have a lot of luck with it. But I know people who swear by this stuff, so just so you know. Okay, if your porcelain is glazed, you can even put a little bit of luster on it. This is mother of pearl. And it really helps as far as giving the effect of being on ice here. And with this one, and with the Santa and some of the others, you're just going to paint what you want to paint. Now, I would suggest that you try to leave a place where you can hold the ornament as you're painting, because it's a little trickier than the birdhouse. The birdhouse, you've got the tops, you've got the bottom, but with an ornament like this, it's a little bit harder. They also make, for the kiln, these sticks that you can put the ornament on. Oh, she's got tape on the bottom of her. Here we go. You can put the ornament on this and then hold it. And that might help you too. So when you're painting, think about your exit plan, because it's important. Like on this one, I left the white on the dress and the white up here. So I had a couple of places where I could pick her up. Another way you can finish off the roof on something is just to use white paint. Use it heavy, or use it with a little more oil in it, and this is how it will come off. Now, this is not easy to see, but if I tilt it there, oops, see the glare? That's white paint, and I did it around the little roof cap. I did it around the bottom, and I did it on the roof here and around the bottom. So that's another way that you can just paint, and your paint will act like snow. And this is really very pretty. Here's the little house. It's really very pretty on the Christmas tree. But I think the glitter with the lights is particularly nice. So what other kinds of things can you do with bisque? Well, here's one. I have used glitter. So here's a bisque ornament that I got. And I love this bisque ornament. It's hollow in the back, so you can't paint on the back. You have to make sure it faces forward. But as you can see from looking at it, it's a little difficult to tell where the top is. So that's another tip I have for you. Always check where the top is before you start painting, because you could have a problem if you paint the sideways. Bisque is not easy to wipe off. You need to either use turpentine or mineral spirits to wipe it off. And a lot of times, if your paint is as dark as like this little girl was, you're going to have to start from scratch, because there's really no way to salvage that. As you wipe it off, it's just going to get into the bisque and make the bisque more and more that color, and so you're just going to have to dip it and start over. Make sure if you do that you let it completely dry, because this is porous, and the turpentine and the mineral spirits will get into it, and it needs to completely dry. Okay. Now, with this little guy, I decided, let me move my sprinkles here. I'm going to put them back in my box. Just fold the paper tap it right back into your box. That's the easiest way to do it. Okay. So, I painted a little snowman on this guy. Nothing elaborate. This is 2 coats though. Isn't that amazing? The outline not so much, but the colors, I wanted them nice and deep. And I wanted the snow to show up down here that he's sitting in. And it's a very simple ornament. Now, looking at it after I got it this far, I realized I probably should have painted the outside of the ornament so that when I put the glitter on, and can you see the glitter? I don't know if you can see the glitter. And it's very easy to apply, and I think it makes a big difference on how this looks. And then the final thing I did it on, and I know you can see this, so I'll turn it back up again, is this angel. She has glitter on her. This is a blue glitter, and I'm thinking now that probably would have been a better choice on this little snowman that I have. But what I do for this is pretty simple. I take a paper plate. It's all painted now. I'm not going to paint anymore. I'm done painting because you can't fire this glitter. And I'm going to take, it's a Deco Art again, it's a Duraclear satin varnish. You can also use Elmer's glue. I find that the varnish tends to hold the glitter in place better, but it's entirely up to you. And I'm just going to take and paint the varnish on. You have to go pretty heavy and make sure you get the outside edges. I'm going to use the blue glitter. Okay. So I've gotten that part. This part here is all painted. And I put it on pretty heavy. Don't use a China brush to paint this stuff on. This is not a China painting product. This is a craft product. You want a craft brush. Okay? And then, I'm going to set it down for a second. Move my, get my trusty piece of paper out here. By the way, make sure you clean off that Snow Tech once you get it on your knife, because it doesn't come off easily afterwards. You really have to work on it. So clean your knives as soon as you use it. Okay. And I'm going to bring him over here. And I'm going to use the blue sparkles. Here are the sparkles. And, oh, this is called Recollections. I think I got it at Joann Fabrics. She just had a ton of really pretty glitters available. And I got smitten. Oops. Okay, so you just put it on, tap it off, and there you go. This is how the glitter looks. I like that blue on there. Yeah, I think the blue looks much better. So I will probably take my brush, go over this side, and do that all with glitter too. So that's another way you can embellish. And this glitter, believe it or not, really will not come off. After it's set, just make sure you tap it really well, and after it's set, it will not come off. It will stay on your ornament. And these, when you're hanging them on the tree with the lights, are just gorgeous. So that's glitter that you can use. Okay. Okay, get it to a V. And there we go. No wasted glitter. The final thing that I wanted to show you is doing an ornament like this. This is my poinsettia ornament. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to lightly, and I mean lightly. I have had instances where I have drawn too heavily on my my bisque, and it has fired that way, and I've been very disappointed. So I'm going to decide where the center of my flower is and just very lightly put a couple little circles. Those are those little berries. You see, it seems like it's kind of hot. Let's take it down a notch there. Okay. And then for this, I'm just going to, they're kind of like little kites, the leaves. They come up to a point, out, and then back down. Up to a point, over and back down. Up to a point, over and back down. And you want to make them sort of uneven. You don't want them all to be the same size. You want some in the background. You want some in the front. So that's what I've drawn. I'm going to do the leaves freehand because you obviously don't need to do the leaves now. You can get a pretty nice watercolor effect actually with the China paint once you get going. I side load for my poinsettia, and I'm working on the leaves. These should look somewhat familiar. Kind of the same way we did the wild rose leaves. See how I'm doing that? And then I'm sort of, now I have to add a little more oil. You will find that oil will really help you with these poinsettia leaves if you do poinsettias. You just sort of sketch down to the edge and then lightly. I'm using, what am I using? Persian red on this one. I don't believe in pinks. So if I want anything to look kind of pinky, I use a Persian red. And then with poinsettias, they have the little, can you see what I did there? I made the little, they have the little veins, and I did that for them. And then I'm going to do it here. Do the vein in the center, kind of like we did last time. I'm just doing up to the center, and then doing a little line in the center, and then I'm coming back down this side to the tip. Now this is going to take 2 fires, I will tell you that right now. So don't spend a lot of time trying to put in all the detail on this one. You want to get the basic form of the leaf and leave as much white space as you can so that you have a nice highlight on there for the next time. If you have enough oil on your brush, you can smooth out some of these petals as you're working on them. And if they aren't quite as dark as you want, don't worry, you'll get them on the second fire. Same thing here. I like the reds because I think the reds are more forgiving on bisque and things like that. So now, this is what I'm doing just so you can see close up. I'm going to redo it on this guy. I touch the center to make the center vein. Then I just touch, 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 touch. I side loaded the brush. That's how I get those veins in there. You know, poinsettias have a ton of veins on them. Now that's a little exaggerated just for you. I would take it down a notch myself and make it a lot less obvious, but I want to make sure that you guys can see what I did. For the center of this, I'm just going to use yellow. I'm not doing anything too fancy because ultimately what I'm going to do is I'm going to use gilding on this, and the gilding I'm going to use will make it a real pretty gold. So I'm using a little yellow, and I'm using a little yellow brown because I think yellow brown helps. So I did my little dots, and now I'm going around. I've got a very fine brush, and I'm just going around and making these little dots something a little more, you know, like shading one side of them. It's going to need 2 coats, so don't get upset. It's going to need 2 coats. Then I put my leaves in, and I like to use a chartreuse and a shading green. I know it sounds hideous, but I think the color combination is actually pretty cool. And you know, they're just the same as the other leaves. So you're going to start close, and then you're just going to pull it up to a point. And if the point goes off the page, who cares? And you want to make sure that you get these in so that they're, oops, I need more oil. There. Can you see what I'm doing? Here, we get a little closer here. And I'll put one more here. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we could. And I want to show you what you can do when you're done with this. Okay. And then, typically what I do on these kind of things, I know I've got 3 and I should probably make it not quite so balanced, and I will do all that. You know, you can add shadow leaves in the background. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm out of frame. Here we go. I'll just do a little shadow there, maybe a little one over here. Okay. And then I take my chartreuse and I just get a ton of, not a ton, but a lot of oil on, and I just lightly brush around the outside. That'll set the tone for next time. Next time when this is all fired, I can start with the chartreuse and then work on the other stuff underneath. But right now I wanted to make sure that I got my leaves done correctly and my petals done right. So I started with them. So that just gives you an idea of how you can do a quick and dirty poinsettia. I have sanded it. I use my sanding sponge if I need to. I don't need to on a lot of them. This one I didn't have to. I'm working on one for an ornament exchange right now. And it's going to be little flowers all the way around. And then I'm going to put some luster on it. And this one was smooth as silk. So a lot of it depends on the person you buy the bisque from, whether or not you need to sand it. I have been fortunate most of the time I don't need to. Okay, I have this stuff. I love it. My daughter is a furniture painter. And she has her own business, the Turned Leg. And she was using Gilding Wax. Back when she started, she was using chalk paint. She doesn't use chalk paint anymore. She uses DIY paint. But we bought these Gilding Waxes. The name on the Gilding Wax is Cire, C-I-R-E, a Dorer, D-O-R-E-R. I'm sure that's not the correct pronunciation, Gilding Wax. And it's available on Amazon. It comes in silver, it comes in gold, and it comes in copper. I have all 3. I've never used the copper yet. You can use it a whole bunch of ways. Let me just show you. You can get Bisque Ornament. You can get Bisque in just about anything that you can get porcelain in. And you can get Bisque thimbles. And you can put gold on the thimbles. You can put gold on the bottom. You can put gold on the top. if they aren't bisque, and this one was not bisque, I still put this gilding on the top, and believe it or well, I had paint first and then I put it on, and it hasn't come off. These have been done for several years already. This one I put it on the top and I put little holly and berries on it. So if you're doing craft shows and things, you can use it for that kind of thing. You can use it around ornaments like this. You can paint first and then put the gilding on. The reason I use this is it's $15 a jar versus $40 for gold. And if you really want to use a lot of gold, it's going to cost you a fortune. And here's an example. These are my pine cones that I did. And I just put it on the side and on the bottom of this. And then the top, I painted. You don't fire it, and you don't need to. Because it's furniture wax, it will dry hard. You can't play with it right away. You maybe need to let it set overnight. But it will dry positively hard. Look. It won't rub off. It's been on this for a long, long time. And so I go with this. First of all, I kind of like the old look it gives everything. So let me show you how to do it. You can use a brush. I prefer to use my finger, but you have to clean it immediately after, or you end up with a gold finger. And you just, this is what it looks like inside. And you just put a little on your finger, like this, and you just go over the area that you want to treat. So here. Now this one is, this poinsettia is already fired. So I'm not going to do anything more with this ornament. And so I apply the gilding. So yes, it's the last thing you do. You don't fire the ornament after this. You don't fire this in the kiln. This is not to be fired. Same thing with the snow. The same thing with the sparkle. None of that can be fired in the kiln. When you do that, you can't put the piece back in the kiln. So you better have it exactly the way you like it, because you're stuck with whatever you ended up with. And you can't put it back in the kiln. It'll make a huge mess. Okay, so you can see I'm just going around using my finger and adding the color. And if it's not going to your taste, if you want to, like you want to do this rim and you're afraid that you might get it somewhere else, and I don't know if I would if I used my finger. Yeah, it's kind of hard to control. I tried it, but it didn't work. There's so much you can do with this. And then if you don't want to get it on the stuff that you have it on, find a brush that you don't care about, dip it in, and you can use the brush. And see how I got around there? And I really didn't mess it up too much. So find a brush. Play with that brush if you want. I tried a Q-tip because I thought a Q-tip would work. You need something that has, I like this brush. It's got the little point on it. It's like a junk brush that I found, I guess, for painting watercolor or something. I found it down in the basement. And I just use that and just go around. You can do the brush if you prefer, or you can just take and put it on your finger. And for the curls on here, my finger works the best. But for the detail, I think I have to go to the brush. Okay, so this is done. I'm not doing anything more to this ornament. This is done. It doesn't get fired after this. That's the most important thing I can tell you is Don't fire the gilding. The gilding is not something you can fire. I've had this jar for 5 years, 5 or 6 years, and that's how much I've used. And I mean, it wasn't filled much more than that. So you can use it a lot. But the key is, as soon as you're done, clean your finger and clean your brush, because if you don't, you will have a mess. And you can stop with this. That's the other nice thing. You can stop now, come back in a couple hours, put a little more on. You can play with it. It's not something you have to do in one setting. Unlike gold, that you have to worry about touching it and getting it off on other things, and having, if you touch gold and then you touch some other part of your piece, a lot of times you get purple. You won't have that with this. The other nice thing is you won't have to worry if when you go to fire gold, a lot of times it fires kind of purpley where it's too thin. This will never look too thin. You can make it exactly the thickness you want. Now I'm going to let it set. Before I would sell this or wrap it up for a gift, I would let it set 24 hours. But that will give you a real nice piece. I hope you learned a lot from that. It's just a lot of easy, quick, simple things you can do, not only to learn how to paint bisque ornaments yourself and maybe do the fancier ones, like this, but also to introduce maybe friends and family. And I know you're not going to see a lot of friends and family probably over the holiday, but if you have kids at home and they're looking for something to do while they're off, you can certainly order some bisque and have them paint it, and they'll have ornaments for the tree, and it would be a fun thing to do, and you can do that every year. Hi, I hope you enjoyed the program, and I hope that you will watch future programs by liking and subscribing to my page. If you do subscribe, I would really appreciate it, so that other people who have a similar interest will be able to see more of this kind of programming. I have studies available at my website along with products. If you're interested in finding out more about those, please look at the description box below. Thank you.